Well, I mean, he's been, I think even last year, I mean, part of it's improvement and part of it is a guy getting an opportunity to play full time. And I think there's a lot of guys out there like that. Like we thought the same thing with Marcus. Get him in a bigger role and he's got a chance to play really well. So we always chalk those guys up to improvement. But whether it was James Harden when he went to Houston or other guys, you put them in a bigger role, you give them more opportunity, they gain confidence and they get a chance to flourish. And I think that's what's happened to Jay. I mean, he's in a perfect system where they really value him, give him a lot of opportunity. He's shooting the three well. He attacks the basket. He's another great defender and high-energy guy and a great pickup by the Celtics who's played really, really well.
Coach, you look around the league, everybody tries to spread the floor and has to stretch for. You were doing that 10 years ago. Is there something that you saw back then that let you know that, hey, but this is maybe where the league's going?
No. Look, I'm not that smart. What happened with me was my first year I get to Orlando, and in September, Tony Battie, who would have been our starting four, hurt his shoulder and was out for the season. So I've got Hito Turkoglu and Rashard Lewis. There was no way one of them was going to come off the bench to play a really inferior guy at the four, and so we spread the floor out. I'm not smart enough to have innovated. I just played with what I had. I think the real difference now, okay, and Boston's one of the teams, the bigger difference now is the number of fives that can step out and shoot the ball. That's what's really changing. So it went from when I first came in the league with Miami, everybody playing two pretty conventional bigs, to getting stretch fours, to now stretch fives. I mean, you go play Phoenix and all of their big step out. These guys can put lineups on the floor where everybody steps out and at least makes a mid-range jump shot. So it gets more and more difficult. We just played Orlando the other night with Vucevic, stepping out, and Jason Smith playing the five. And so I think where it's headed is a lot of teams are going to have everybody on the floor being able to shoot the ball. So it's really spread out. It's pulling conventional big guys away from the basket. And I think that's been the change over the last couple of years. The four-man being able to shoot has been around now for a long time, but now the fives that can step out are really changing the game.
To follow up on his question, I'm sorry. One of the things that surprised us, probably we were talking about this, I think either yesterday or today, you really value size, and while this trend may be going towards small ball, you have placed a premium on size when you talk about your personnel decisions.
Well, size at a position, yeah, I think it's important because I think with all of the ability to spread the floor out, one of the ways you can combat that a little bit is to be able to switch more pick and rolls. But to do that, you've got to have some size at positions that can switch on to bigger guys, and you've also got to have more mobile bigs. So, teams like Indiana are forcing you to switch a lot of pick and rolls, and then you've got to have guys big enough that when Paul George or somebody like that rolls you down, you can play them. So, there's always this back and forth in the league. Offenses start doing new things. You've got to be able to defend it. And my brother's been saying it for the last 3 or 4 years, and he's right. I think what you have to try to build is the most versatile roster you can. We're going to be able to put lineups out there that can handle post-up teams like Memphis. Are you going to be able to put lineups out there that can handle, bigs that step away from the basket? I mean, it's hard. There's the league right now is there's a lot of teams very, very difficult to defend, and trying to find the right people to do that and still be able to score at the other end is hard.
Stan, you've talked about how young Andre is, even at the stage of his career. If you could project the next 2 or 3 years for him, besides him being a 90% free throw shooter, what would you hope for that he develops in his offensive game?
Well, it's not so much what he develops in his offensive game. I think as still a young player, what Andre needs to develop more than anything is a real consistent approach to the game where he brings great energy and intensity every night. Because when he does that, then he's going to impact the game in a big way no matter what else happens. I mean, he can, just his energy, size, and athleticism, that combination, he's going to rebound, he's going to get baskets rolling to the hoop. He's going to run the floor. He can be great defensively. He's gotten better. He's making progress, but he's still up and down in terms of his intensity level. And so with me, that's pretty much all I talk to him about is, that's what's got to get better. Skill development is coming and will continue to come as he works in the off seasons and things like that. But he's got to develop an even more consistent approach to the game in terms of his energy.
We've seen bigs become good free throw shooters, Tim Duncan being a good example of it. Is that something you can see down the line for him? Is there any way to project that?
There is no way to project it because in the gym he has made a lot of progress. You can see the work, practice sessions where he's gotten a lot better, but in games it's actually gotten worse. So there's clearly a psychological component to it and something that he's got to continue to work through and in terms of his mental practice and his routines and everything else to get to the point that it will translate into games.
Is it technique?
No, he can get in the gym and is shooting the ball a lot better. I'm not gonna say he's shooting 90% in the gym. He's not, but he can go in the gym every day and shoot 70% plus. And right now, it just hasn't been able to translate into the game, and that's something that we're working toward.
You do have that sports psychologist on call, don't you, Tim? Does he?
He's been around a lot, but number one, it takes time. You're working through a lot of things, and number two, players have to embrace it and see the importance of it.
When you have I know you have is it four assistants who rotate your game planning?
Correct.
When you have a situation where you play a number of games against a team like this in a compressed schedule, do you ever alter it where one guy does them all?
No. Well, we do if it's like games 1 and 2 against Boston, our first two. I think when it's within a week or so, we do. So Malik had those 2 games, but no. Then this one rotated again. I think I go a week or 8 days. We'll just repeat the guy. But then I think it's also good to get a fresh set of eyes on it too. So for the most part, they rotate.
Coach, do you look at games among teams with similar records as checkpoints, or is this?
Not checkpoints so much. They're just important because so many teams in the East bunch that, it's sort of a double hit if you can get a win and hand somebody else a loss at the same time. It's a big deal. But as far as checkpoints, no, every game's a checkpoint with how well you're playing.
You mentioned versatility on your roster just a little bit ago, and you turned this roster over quite a bit in the last year or so. How do you feel like you guys are on that score?
We're making progress. We still have a ways to go, but we're making progress. There's 3 guys left that, we inherited. All good players, all part of our rotation. We've got a team that we really like, attitude-wise, culture-wise, work ethic-wise. But we're still young and still have to supplement it as we go forward. But I do feel like we've got a core that we can build around now. And we're not going to need to make wholesale changes and things like that. I think the amount of roster turnover now will slow down a great deal, and we'll just use, hopefully, the off season to supplement what we have now.